man. So, tell me about your musical environment growing up and how that affected your musicianship.
Oh, that's an interesting question because I think the musical environment was like very eclectic. Because my father, he used to be a jazz drummer, and I think my first musical experience, well, I don't think I'm sure, my first musical experience started actually was like classical music and jazz. I started like playing around 7, and I was like always around specifically just jazz music, like Keith Jarrett, like Bill Evans, like Miles Davis, John Coltrane, all that stuff, right? And so I was like begging my parents to get me a guitar for. I don't even know why I started doing it. I was like around 6 and I was begging them, like I probably saw someone
Yeah.
like playing, and yeah, I was begging them to get me a guitar for like a year until they got one. And then my journey started with classical and jazz music, and then slowly like progressed into obviously like listening, playing to what was around in the radio at the time, just kind of taking interest, and then also like taking huge interest in like classic rock. Then like at the time, because I was like in Ukraine, like everyone on the radio was like indie rock, so I started playing like in indie bands. And then also there were like during the MTV era, there was a lot of kind of industrial stuff like Manson and Nine Inch Nails and like Rammstein
Mhm.
and like chords. I started like picking up on that too. And then I was doing that. Then I went back to jazz and doing it professionally and writing like scores and not playing classical anymore, but like specifically doing jazz. And then I moved here, and then I went through again playing in indie bands, and like just pretty much like any band I could like play in. I had like 4
Mhm.
different bands at this time when I moved here, and also started like also doing electronic music because I
Oh,
was like
yeah.
producing. Yeah, so there's a lot. And then I kind of went like I realized for myself that I need the music needs to be like heavier for me to like physically, almost like to feel it physically. So that's where I landed now.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, going back a bit, you're still very, very much in touch with your family, right? You're still very close with,
Yeah, of course. Yeah, yeah. We talk a couple of
especially
times a
with
week.
what's going on right now. Like, it must be like intense bullshit. Do you feel kind of numb to it, or at
Oh,
least
I feel like
some
super
kind of,
jittery. I feel like super
yeah,
bipolar regarding it. Like
yeah,
sometimes I can kind of feel like numb, but then like in the morning I'll wake up and like read about the news and everything that's going on, and just like my mood swings just like goes like that. So at least, and sometimes I can't hold it, like and I pay for it because I start talking shit. Like I did that recently on Instagram, and like immediately like it demonetized and everything like for 3 months, but I just like can't do anything about it, just because the emotions like really run high.
yeah. And speaking of the music of Ukraine, it's really interesting history. Obviously, in the 60s and 70s, there was a lot of stuff like forming like an underground scene was pretty much unheard of because, everything who would try to attempt something remotely unorthodox would be banned. But then toward the 80s, you had like couple bands that stuck out to me were Vopli Vito Plesova and
Oh yeah, yeah, they're
Denise
super
and
cool.
Brati Hadjukinik.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Like also like Ocean Elzil. Yeah, like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, I was listening to like I saw Ocean Elsa here. They're like played a couple of years back, and yeah, they're kind of like our like most popular band, I would say. Like everyone like loves them. Funny story. So back in Kiev, there was this Club 44, right? And every Sunday they would have like jam sessions. So I would go there like to play like jazz and like was whoever was there, right? And the bassist from Ocean Elzis Ocean, he's like actual like really professional like upright jazz like upright bassist. And
Mhm.
so like I jammed with them, and like yeah, they're super cool. And even like you mentioned Vopli with the Plasva, it's funny. They took a lot of like influences from like kind of like blues and Americana styles, like when you listen to them, and like you
Yeah,
can feel like and but it's done like
yeah.
you know was according to the stuff that we were doing. But you're right, it was all of that stuff was banned until like 80s. It was mainly like governmental like orchestral like it
Right.
was like programmatic music that is done for the people, you know. So it was like part of propaganda, like the music that was written the like during the USSR period.
So like by the 80s, it began like its classic era of like bands who are actually popular and it can actually like spread.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure about like I'm not familiar with the dates, you know. I'm
Yeah,
not
yeah.
like my dates. I think those guys were actually like late 80s, yeah, and
Yeah,
early
yeah,
90s.
late 80s, yeah. Late
Yeah,
80s,
and
early 90s.
yeah, before that, I'm not really familiar because I know like my father would he told me stories like he would like sell like the vinyls that because it was because of all the Iron Curtain situation, like it was hard to get your hands on anything from the West, which I think where Russia is going to right now again, you know, and like so he would like sell vinyl records like under the table, you know, and that's how he got like his love for like Western music and like in turn like I got mine. But before that time we had a lot of composers, you know, and like classical musicians. Like classical music just in Europe is generally very strong, you know, and like the in Eastern Europe too.
Yeah, yeah. And you know, in general, when I think about music from those kinds of countries, everybody, especially the West and the United States, is like, look how much this, pitiful, like politically driven country is trying to emulate our music. And I'm like, number one, that's bullshit. Number two,
Mhm.
you're throwing away years and years of, established popular music. Like not only in Ukraine, but in Russia and in China and in the Philippines, they
Oh
think
yeah,
of their politics and they're like, oh, that's the
yeah,
main thing that solidifies the country's identity. But no, it's all about the music, man.
yeah. Like right now, I think just like in Eastern Europe generally,
Yeah.
like including Ukraine, Russia, and like Poland, there's I
There's so
feel
many
like
great bands in there, man.
yeah, like especially right now, I think there's like some sort of like renaissance for like new bands because they've kind of well before the production of music, the culture of producing
Yeah,
music there was not at on the same high level as in like
yeah, yeah.
UK and America, you know. And you can look at like for when I got here, so I started playing with this band, Dear Left Brain, and there's just some of that music out and it was like an indie band. And you know, I got into the rehearsal room and I was like packed with like gear. I was like, what? Like, how can you have so much gear? You know, because like there you would have to
Yeah.
like, I don't know, save for one amp like of half of your life, you know, for
Sure,
like 10
sure.
years, you know, and then like, oh my God, and that's gonna be your like amp for your entire life. So just the generally also the access to gear alone, like I'm a big fan of a lot of like American like production when it comes to gear. You know, like I use like specifically like Mesa. I remember when I just unbagged that and just like how it smelled. I was like, oh my god.
Yeah, so moving to Los Angeles and getting the Hate Club underway, was that when it started when you moved to Los Angeles, or did you build it up sometime in Ukraine?
Yeah, no, like the project didn't exist then. Like it because I went through multiple bands here. Well,
Right.
I was playing in indie bands. I was playing like in jazz orchestras and playing in jazz trios. I was DJing and like playing like dubstep and electronic music.
Yeah, yeah,
I was doing like everything. And then and some of the projects I was involved with like they were like signed, you know, and like had some things going, but then they all like broke up either like because of band drama or some yeah, mainly band drama,
hmm,
you know, or mainly on losing interest
yeah,
in that particular genre. And so after the last project, like Freeform, like broke up, that's when I was like, okay, well, I'm not just gonna quit. I mean, I'm gonna keep doing music, you know, regardless. So, and I
so
didn't
yeah.
quite know what I'm gonna do, like in terms of genre. And then it just started evolving. I started talking to some of my friends, like introduced me to some, like showed me some cool heavy stuff, and then just kind of like started like growing.
Okay, so the Hate Club is essentially your baby, like your sole
Yeah,
entity, and then
yeah.
everyone else is just sort of involved, or has it kind of mutated into a band?
It's going towards that way. I don't know if you've checked like the recent music video, like Cursed. So that's
Yeah.
when I met the guys when I went on tour, like solo as the Hate Club. like 4 years ago to Midwest, and so I kept like in contact with like Noah, the guitarist, Owen, like the drummer, and then like we got like Noah's brother Jacob to fill in on the bass for the music video, and they all have their own projects, you know, and so we are like I'm considering having them on the tour depending on like their schedule. Like there are no like consistent members outside of me. So you're right in a way that it is like solely my project. I always wanted to play in a band, you know, but like I just got in a situation where, well, I didn't have one and I needed to keep making music, you know.
Yeah, yeah, and going back in comparison, your earlier sort of releases with Death of the Protagonist, was that like in prologue? Were those like solo efforts?
Well, everything is solo, yeah.
Okay.
Like even this music right now, it's all like
Oh,
also
okay. Yeah,
it's
yeah.
all written solo, yeah. And I also took there are two EPs missing or three EPs that I took down that are only going to be available like on the side download just because I don't think they necessarily represent the sound that I'm going after right now. So I
Sure,
took it
yeah.
down, but there are like two more EPs, and I just kept the acoustic stuff because it's kind of neutral and I enjoy it, you know. But yeah, Death of the Protagonist was like 2 years ago, three or almost
Hmm.
20 years
Yeah,
ago. I
yeah.
don't remember. Yeah,
Yeah.
2 years ago. I think that's where I've like decided to go kind of like heavier, you know, because it felt good. Yeah, and Prologue EP was just a year ago because I felt like okay, I'm done with the EPs because by that point I released like four different EPs and like four like full instrumental EPs and two like acoustic EPs, you know, just on the guitar. So I'm like, okay, I want to do an album now, and that's what I'm working on right now. But it's still all like produced and written, recorded like by me.
Hmm. So with that, how have you thought about your reception in the United States? How people have taken a liking to your music?
Good, yeah, especially in Midwest, it was great. Like it's US is still like number one market for me in terms of like the amount of listeners, right? But then there's a general consensus that um you or at least like how I feel like US is very driven by market trends. You know what I mean? Like there are certain
Sure.
sound, like there, for example, you take like Sumerian records and everything they
Yeah,
release right now. Okay,
yeah.
that's how we want to see the metal now. You know what I mean? So it's
The
like
Sumerian
challenging.
sound, if you will.
Yeah, yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah, like Sumerian the civilization. Uh
Yeah,
yeah, and so like a US market is particular, I feel like, and it's driven by trends.
yeah.
A lot of people tell me that I would have like more success like in Europe, and I'm planning a tour in Europe too, in like South America, but like also just you know messing with that beast that US music scene is. It's interesting. Because like I think if you make it in the United States, you kind of make it like everywhere in the world. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um
Do you find
so
that do you find that you have some reception in Europe that's kind of bubbling under it, that's kind of equaling the success in US, or not really? It's its own sort of
it's
thing.
more. I think like they
Oh,
love me
more?
way more there than like and in South America than here. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Here is like I generally think also people in the United States like don't really are not as upfront with their emotions as like how I'm used to like
Right.
have you know like my peers, my friends back in Ukraine, you know, it's like way more emotional and here's more it's like reading like Hemingway, you
Yeah,
know.
it's like
It's
everyone, yeah, everyone in Europe is like attuned to the lyrics of a song, where
yeah.
here we're attuned to like the beats and the sonics
Yeah.
and the
Yeah, it's
drops and
and
the
also the way people like express their emotion. I
right.
mean, I don't know. It's interesting. I feel there's definitely way more love like in Europe that like I'm aware of. You know what I mean? Like especially like in Germany, like Poland, obviously like in Eastern Europe, but like Germany too, like France, the UK, and like I would love to go to South America, like to Argentina or like Chile and like Brazil. Like I think like people there like really love like the hip hop and like in Mexico too. Mexico is like great metal scene. Um and so I don't know. America is kind of like I know there's like I'd rather go on tour in Europe right now than in America. You know what I mean? Because
Of course.
that would be like kind of like safer, you know, that
Yeah.
I would like yeah.
It's really cool. And yeah, because I have a similar indifference of America. Obviously, you know me, I'm all about the bands from other countries.
Yeah, yeah,
Just as
yeah, yeah.
a all about, you know, Ukraine as well as, Russia, Japan, China, Philippines, Singapore, everything.
Yeah, there's so much stuff right now, like in the world that kind of that locally pridefully produced music, like we see like metal bands like the Bloody Wood, I think they're from India,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
like the Boys of Bassaprat. I
yeah,
don't
yeah,
remember where they're from. They're like from Pakistan, or maybe from, yeah,
yeah,
Pakistan or Iran, something like that. But like, there's a lot of cool stuff coming out right now from all over the world, and it's interesting. You'll still listen to it regardless if you understand the lyrics or not. It's
yeah,
cool. Yeah,
yeah.
I'm really excited for like that kind of that just that eclectic mix of just different flavors.
Yeah. So going back to Cursed, I mean, that's your lead track of the new album that you have coming out. And when you think about the tracks that you prepared for the album, um, what resonated with you the most about Cursed that inspired you to lead it off in this album?
Because I felt like it's a performance song,
Yeah.
song made for like live performance, and I wanted to show like that side of the project, what I'm going to be bringing with the project, because the previous music videos, some of them that I've done were like 3D animated or like 2D animation, which is cool, but I wanted to kind of show like what people can expect in the performance setting, so that was the main driving that okay, so that was the first reason, and the second reason, that was the only track that was written in the time.
Yeah, yeah. Nice.
So I didn't have
Well,
many.
it's good that you're honest. If you have only that, you focus on that one. It's like, well, it
Yeah,
does have a good reception and a good sound, and you have, and I've seen the transition between your releases. You are working towards a better focus, a better refined sound. So it's awesome.
yeah. Yeah, I think like all musicians, strive towards that. I mean, like we always want to make things better. Like if you're anything you're working, in any like art form, any profession, like if you actually like it, what you're doing, you will pursue improvement
Hmm.
and
And
evolution.
speaking of that, linking those two questions together, how do you feel that you've improved as a producer?
Oh, quite a lot. Like I still struggle with like a lot of, well, okay, well, not so much struggle with like DAOs, but I think it was not so much as the skill of getting the sounds out, making them out, or like hearing ideas. It was more about being not sure if this idea is good. So like the most recent improvement over this year that I'm proud of is being confident in the sound that like I know I want to go for, and being able to replicate it, and not, most importantly, not doubting it.
Hmm. Then, sort of wrapping this up, what have you say you learned about yourself as a musician and a producer overall throughout this journey in your music?
Oh, I think everything, there's a general, just because I've been involved with music since like I was 7. It's not like part of my life. It is life, and like everything I do, I want to dedicate myself to that path. So like what I've learned about myself a lot, because like you every time you write new music, you discover new things. You read literature to that will inspire you, that will lead to another. So I learned everything about myself on both physical, spiritual, and like metaphysical like levels, in terms of what I learned what I want to be, or what I learned what my purpose is in life.
Nice. And then lastly, anything you'd like to say to your fans?
I love you all.
Yeah,
Despite the name, I know it's the
yeah. Yeah, it's the contrary, but you're
Yeah,
getting you're getting your music out there. That's the thing, and the reception from your fans matters. So it's awesome. Way
absolutely.
to go, man.
Yeah. Thanks, man. Like I really appreciate you having me. This was actually like a very interesting conversation.
Hmm.
Thanks, man.
I hope to speak with you again if you release another record. Totally down for a follow-up, man.
Yeah, let's do this, man. Thanks, Jake.
Yeah, I'll post this up in a little bit, so I'll
Cool,
share
cool.
it. You
I'll
can check it
repost it.
out. Yeah.
Cheers, man. Thank you.
All right. Rock
Bye.
on.